We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Just before President Kennedy's challenge to land a man on the moon, Alan Shepard became America's first man in space.
All right, liftoff and the clock has started. Yes, sir, reading you loud and clear. This is Freedom 7. The fuel is go, 1.2 G. Cabin at 14 PSI. Oxygen is go. Cabin pressure is holding at 5.5.
Shepard rode a tiny Mercury capsule on a brief suborbital flight. While America celebrated, the Soviet Union had already sent a cosmonaut into Earth orbit. Yuri Gagarin, the world's first true spaceman. In 1957, the Soviets shocked the world by orbiting the first satellite, ushering in the space age. For 3.5 years, they scored one first after another. It seemed like they could do no wrong. And we could do nothing right. To restore America's pride and prestige, the United States began one of the most ambitious endeavors in human history.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
It would take $40 billion and the labors of 300,000 men and women. They would build the Apollo spacecraft to take 3 men into lunar orbit and bring them safely back to Earth. And the lunar module that would land on the moon, then return the astronauts to their command ship. They would build the giant Saturn V rocket boosters to launch Apollo into space. And at Cape Canaveral, a spaceport, a city of its own, with the world's largest building to assemble the towering moon rockets. Since the dawn of man, we looked to the heavens and wondered at this unreachable object that beckoned in the sky above. Now, at long last, we would dare to journey there and touch the very face of the moon. Robot explorers paved the way to the moon. They crashed into its surface, sending back close-up television pictures until the last instant. They orbited the moon, taking thousands of detailed photographs to help select the Apollo landing sites. And they landed on the moon, digging trenches and taking pictures. The ground was firm. It was safe for man to follow. The 2-man Gemini flights also brought us a step closer to the moon. In the mid-1960s, there were 10 of these missions. Gemini astronauts were the first to rendezvous and dock in space. They proved that the men of Apollo could use this same technique to get home from the surface of the moon. And Gemini astronaut Ed White made the first U.S. spacewalk, paving the way for the astronauts who would walk on the moon. White was selected to fly the first manned Apollo mission into Earth orbit with Gus Grissom and Roger Chaffee. Then, tragedy struck. On January 27, 1967, a fire broke out in the capsule during a manned rehearsal. Grissom, White, and Chaffee perished. An entire nation mourned. But America pressed on, determined that their deaths would not be in vain. The giant Saturn V booster that would hurl men to the moon made its first unmanned test flight. And it sent an Apollo capsule plunging into the atmosphere at 25,000 miles an hour, as astronauts would do returning home from the moon. The capsule survived. This important mission was a stunning success. 21 months after the tragic fire, the first manned Apollo flight into Earth orbit finally took place. The command ship had been redesigned for much greater safety, perhaps saving lives in the long run. The next flight reached a new milestone in human history. The Apollo 8 astronauts broke the bonds of Earth for the first time and headed for lunar orbit. They were the first to see our tiny planet floating in the vastness of space.
All right, you're all looking at yourselves as seen from 180,000 miles out in space.
Mike, what I keep imagining is if I'm some lonely traveler from another planet, what I think about the Earth from this altitude, whether I think it'd be inhabited or not.
A rocket burn put them into lunar orbit. Then, the first eyewitness account of the foreboding landscape, 60 miles below.
I know my own impression is that it's a vast, lonely, forbidding type existence or expanse of nothing. It looks rather like clouds and clouds of pumice stone.
As they circled the moon on Christmas Eve, 1968, Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders read from the book of Genesis.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
Our view of ourselves and our place in the universe had forever been changed.
The vast loneliness up here on the moon is awe-inspiring, and it makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth. The Earth from here is a grand oasis in the big vastness of space.
Now the pace was quickening. On Apollo 9, the lunar module went into Earth orbit for its first manned test flight. It left the command ship and pulled away to a distance of 100 miles. Then it redocked. At the moon, it must work perfectly, or its passengers might never get home.
How's the view, Tim? Charlie, it might sound corny, but the view is really out of this world.
Apollo 10, the final dress rehearsal for the first landing on the moon. This time, the landing craft went in low over the lunar surface. Once again, it performed flawlessly. The stage had been set for man's greatest adventure. Mission Commander Neil Armstrong would make the first landing on the moon. A civilian, he was one of the hottest test pilots at Edwards Air Force Base. He flew just about everything, including the X-15 rocket plane that traveled to the edge of space. On Gemini 8, Armstrong proved himself under fire. During a docking maneuver, his spacecraft began tumbling out of control. He broke loose from his Agena target vehicle, but the wild spinning was getting worse. Only seconds away from blackout, Armstrong realized a thruster on the spacecraft regained control and returned home safely. Armstrong now faced the biggest unknown of all, landing on the moon. This vehicle was designed to give him some hands-on experience right here on Earth. Suddenly, the trainer spun out of control. Only 100 feet above the ground, Armstrong ejected and parachuted to safety unharmed. Edwin Buzz Aldrin would accompany Armstrong to the lunar surface. An Air Force officer, he developed the mathematical formulas for spacecraft to rendezvous in orbit. On Gemini 12, he saw the results of his hard work firsthand. And he spent nearly 6 hours outside his ship, a new world's record. His next venture into space would take him to the surface of the moon. Air Force officer Michael Collins would circle the moon in the command ship, waiting for his comrades to return. The mighty Saturn V rocket made their historic trip possible. It towered 363 feet into the air. The 5 first-stage engines generated 7.5 million pounds of thrust. For German rocket scientist Wernher von Braun and his team of experts, it was a triumph and a lifelong dream about to come true. The moment of truth was almost at hand. The astronauts had trained long and hard. They were ready. And as they made their way to the launch pad, the hopes and prayers of an entire world went with them. The astronauts rode to the top of this space-age Goliath to enter their tiny command ship as the Saturn V stood ready to unleash its fury. A million people gathered at Cape Canaveral to witness the liftoff.
Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Roger, we got a roll program.
Tower cleared.
Roger, roll. Complete and emission program. One Bravo. This is Houston. You are go for staging. Staging. And ignition. Houston, Apollo 11 and Saturn gave us a magnificent ride. Roger, 11, we'll pass that on, and it certainly looks like you're well on your way now.
From Earth orbit, a rocket burn put them on target for the moon. In their cramped living quarters, the astronauts had everything they needed to carry out their mission: food, water, oxygen, navigation equipment, and controls to keep them on course.
11, this is Houston. You are go for LOI, over.
3 days after leaving Earth, another rocket burned on the back side of the moon. Apollo 11 was in lunar orbit. Rounding the corner, they passed directly above their landing site. Armstrong and Aldrin crawled through the tunnel into the lunar lander, just as they did in this earlier checkout. Then they undocked in their new spaceship, the Eagle.
Roger, Eagle, undocked. Roger, how does it look? The Eagle has wings.
The engine ignited. They began their descent to the lunar surface.
Altitude 4200.
Houston, you're a go for landing, over. Roger, understand. Go for top alarm.
Their onboard computer was designed to bring them in close to the landing site. Then Armstrong would make the final touchdown. Suddenly, trouble. The computer began sending out alarms. It was overloading.
1201. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm. We're go. Same type. We're go.
It was a courageous decision. Ignore the alarms and go for landing. The alarms had kept Armstrong too busy to look out the window. But now he did look. The computer was taking them into a field of boulders. He took over the controls and looked for a smooth place to land as the fuel gauge rapidly approached zero. With their lives in the balance, they might soon have to abort the landing.
Looking good, down a half. 6 forward. 60 seconds. Lights on. 6. Down 2.5. Forward. Forward. Good. 40 feet down 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Straight shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 20, down a half. 30 seconds. Forward, just. Good. Okay. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
They made it, with less than 30 seconds of fuel to spare. Now, through the window, the first glimpse of an alien landscape.
Yeah, but it looks like a collection of just about every variety of shape, angularity, granularity, but every variety of rock you could find.
6 hours later, Neil Armstrong made his way down the ladder.
I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. Surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe.
Armstrong gathered up a small sample of rocks and soil. In case of a sudden emergency, they would not take off empty-handed. Then it was Aldrin's turn.
Now I want to back up and partially close the hatch. Making sure not to lock it on my way out. Particularly good thought. That's our home for the next couple hours. We want to take good care of it. Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation.
Armstrong unveiled a plaque to be left on the moon.
Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD. It came in peace for all mankind.
Then they planted the American flag. Mission Control described the scene to Mike Collins, orbiting overhead.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is.
Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent?
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
And now, a phone call from the White House.
For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, for one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one.
Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you.
The astronauts had no trouble walking on the moon. Loping along in 1/6 of Earth's gravity just seemed to come naturally.
2 or 3 or maybe 4 easy paces can bring you to a fairly smooth stop. Direction. Like a football player, you just have to put out to the side and cut a little bit.
They set up scientific instruments. This device was designed to capture particles from the solar wind. A seismic experiment would measure moonquakes and meteorite impacts. Core samples were taken.
I hope you're watching how hard I have to hit this into the ground to the tune of about 5 inches, Houston.
And a laser reflector would help measure the exact distance from Earth to Moon. The experiments were simple. The journey on the lunar surface, only 2 hours. The goal was to prove it could be done and to get home safely. Future astronauts would build on this historic achievement. Just as Armstrong and Aldrin rode on the shoulders of so many others before them.
Buzz, this is Houston. It's about time for you to start your EVA closeout activities.
Back inside the LEM, a moment of elation for Neil Armstrong.
And you're cleared for takeoff.
Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. Engine arm S in. Proceed. Beautiful. 26, 36 feet per second up. 5 for the pitch over. Very smooth. Balance couple off. Very quiet ride. There's that one crater on there.
Orbiting overhead, Mike Collins watched as the lunar adventurers drew closer and closer. Armstrong and Aldrin transferred back to the command ship for the journey home. Now it was time to relax and have some fun. Buzz Aldrin showed how you make a ham sandwich in space. And Mike Collins took a drink of water in 0 G, like a Spanish wine flask. As the moon got farther away and the Earth drew near, the astronauts reflected on the historic journey and the people who made it possible.
We feel that this stands as a symbol of the insatiable curiosity of all mankind to explore the unknown. All you see is the three of us, but beneath the surface are thousands and thousands of others. And to those people, tonight we give a special thank you. And to all the other people that are listening and watching tonight, God bless you. Good night from Apollo 11.
Still looking mighty fine here. You're cleared for landing. Roger, gear, stand and lock. Apollo 11 lined up right down the middle of the entry corridor. Velocity is now 35,578 feet per second.
They were hoisted on board a helicopter and taken to the aircraft carrier Hornet in special isolation suits. They would spend 17 days in a sealed chamber to be sure they hadn't brought back any moon germs.
There's some signaling for applause from the crowd. Astronauts gather in the window. That this is the greatest week in the history of the world since the creation. Because as a result of what happened in this week, the world is bigger infinitely, and also the world's never been closer together before. And we just thank you for that.
Then they toured the globe as millions turned out to celebrate the greatest journey in history. Apollo 12 had it with pinpoint accuracy. Pete Conrad and Alan Bean would try to visit an unmanned surveyor spacecraft.
That may have been a small one for Neil, but that's a long one for me. Oh, you'll never believe it. That's what I see sitting on the side of the crater. The old surveyor, huh? The old surveyor, yes, sir.
They made it look easy, almost routine. But Apollo 13 would be anything but routine. James Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes lifted off in April of 1970. Little did they know that their spacecraft was a ticking time bomb. 200,000 miles from Earth, it exploded.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Yes, Houston, we've had a problem.
Here is a bulletin from ABC News. The Apollo 13 spacecraft has had a serious power supply malfunction.
Right about then, it was quite apparent to me that it was just a question of time that the command module was going to be dead.
The life-giving oxygen tanks in the command module were empty. Only one of its 3 fuel cells was still generating electricity.
It dawned on me, and I'm sure Jack and Fred about the same time, that we were indeed in serious trouble. The only way to survive the situation was to transfer to the LEM.
The astronauts fled to the lunar landing module. This lifeboat provided oxygen and power to keep them alive. There would be no landing on the moon. The goal now was simply to survive. The experts at Mission Control were trying to stay cool and save the astronauts. As they planned each step, they were weaving their way through a minefield. A wrong guess could be fatal.
Okay, well, let's make sure we don't blow the whole mission.
The LEM's rocket motor made a critical burn around the back side of the moon to bring them home to Earth. Inside the cold, dark LEM, the 3 men carefully conserved their dwindling supplies. And they made it with only 12 hours of fuel and oxygen to spare. As they prepared for re-entry, they finally saw the result of the oxygen tank explosion that had torn their service module apart.
And there's one whole side of that spacecraft missing.
Is that right?
The whole panel is blown out, almost from the base to the engine.
It's really a mess. Man, that's unbelievable.
Apollo, the recovery, over.
Well, the ones splashed in at this time, the first shoots are displaced are in the water.
An entire world held its breath while the astronauts fought to survive. Now people everywhere rejoiced.
Command module is stable 1 at this time. They're riding comfortably.
The men of Apollo 13, by their poise and skill under the most intense kind of pressure, epitomize the character that accepts danger and surmounts it. Theirs is the spirit that built America.
9 months later, the problems that caused the near disaster on Apollo 13 had been solved. Alan Shepard, America's first man in space, would now get a chance to walk on the moon. Apollo 14 lifted off at the end of January 1971 with Shepard, Ed Mitchell, and Stuart Roosa. Theirs would be the most ambitious mission yet, to explore the rugged lunar highlands of Fra Mauro.
This is really a wild place up here.
Jerry Houston, you're go for landing.
Their major objective was Cone Crater, a hole blasted in the moon's surface eons ago. It might shed new light on the history of the moon, the Earth, and the solar system. Alan Shepard stepped onto the moon.
Halo's on the surface, and it's been a long way, but we're here.
A few minutes later, he was joined by Ed Mitchell.
This one is a long one.
Shepard and Mitchell planted the flag in the lunar soil. Now they began to set up an automatic scientific laboratory.
What do you think's a good spot for the Alston? Oh boy, it's going to be tough, Al. I just head out toward Dublin out there and let's look.
Then they began their assault on Cone Crater, a climb towards the summit of a lunar mountain, and also back through time.
About almost 2 hours now. It's at least 30 minutes up there. It's going to take longer than we expected.
Top a ridge, thinking it's the rim of the crater, and there's another ridge ahead of you.
I don't think we'll have time to go up there. Oh, let's give it a whirl. Gee whiz, we can't stop without looking in the Cone Crater.
Okay, and so right now we have a 30-minute extension.
Okay, we better reconnoiter here. I don't see the crater yet. Agreed.
Standing in a boulder field, the frustrated astronauts made their most difficult decision. With the agreement of Mission Control, they stopped their climb less than 150 feet from the edge of Cone Crater to begin the more important job of collecting samples.
The crew had no way of realizing they were so close. It was a week after the mission before we determined this by photographic analysis.
It was a bitter disappointment, but the mission itself was a stunning scientific success. The rocks the astronauts gathered near Cone Crater proved to be some of the oldest ever found on the moon, more than 4.5 billion years old. Now Alan Shepard added her to tee off on the moon.
Unfortunately, the suit is so stiff I can't do this with 2 hands, but I'm going to try a little sand trap shot here. There we go. Miles and miles and miles. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition. What a liftoff. And liftoff. Roger, ignition. And around we go. Show us a little style. Oh, you look good.
As the astronauts of Apollo 14 made their way home, an exciting new machine was waiting in the wings. Future astronauts would ride in style across the lunar surface.
Engines armed. 5, 4, 3. 3, 2, 1, all engines running.
Apollo 15 left for the moon at the end of July 1971 with David Scott, James Irwin, and Al Worden. Scott and Irwin would be the first to land in the mountains of the moon. They soared in low over the towering Apennine Range.
Oh, this is really profound, I'll tell you. It's fantastic.
Then they headed for a mountain plain near Hadley Rill. This was one of the most important geological sites anywhere on the moon. July 31st. After a night's rest, Dave Scott descended into the lunar morning.
Okay, Houston, as I stand out here in the wonders of the unknown at Hadley, true to our nature, man must explore.
Their first job was to get the lunar roving vehicle out of its storage bay. Then they loaded their equipment, boarded the rover, and became the first astronauts to drive on the moon. They were headed toward St. George Crater, located on a mountain slope above Hadley Rill, to the south of the landing site.
Hang on. Man, this is really a rock and rollin' ride, isn't it? Look at that. That's beautiful. That is spectacular. This is unreal. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Then Scott adjusted the television antenna on the rover. 250,000 miles away in Houston's Mission Control, a technician aimed the television camera mounted on the rover. Scientists and engineers could monitor the lunar exploration as never before. And those of us at home watching on live television became the third astronaut on the moon.
Can you imagine that, Joe? Here sits this rock, and it's been here since before creatures roamed the sea on our little Earth. I can't believe we came over those mountains. We did. It's just a beautiful little valley. And Tchaikovsky is big enough so that you do get some, at least optical impressions of the central peak being higher than the ridges.
60 miles above the moon, Al Worden orbited in the command module, operating experiments, adding to the wealth of information gathered by his comrades below.
Okay, I'm looking right down on Litro now, and a very interesting thing. It looks like a whole field of small cinder cones down there.
The cinder cones were obviously volcanic. It was more strong evidence that volcanoes played an important role in the moon's formation.
Guess what we just found? I think we found what we came for. Crystal and rock, huh? Yes, sir. You better believe it.
This was part of the original lunar crust, formed near the beginning of the solar system, untouched by billions of years of meteorite impacts and lava flows. Nicknamed the Genesis Rock, it was a major clue in studying the formation of the moon, the Earth, and the planets.
Oh, look at the mountains today, Jim, when they're all sunlit. Isn't that beautiful? It really is. By golly, that's just super. It's, unreal. Dave, I'm reminded of a favorite biblical passage from Psalm. I look unto the hills from whence cometh my help. But of course, we get quite a bit from Houston, too.
It was their final journey across the lunar surface. Back at the lab, Scott made history, canceling a stamp on an interplanetary envelope.
I'm very proud to have the opportunity here to play postman. What could be a better place to cancel the stamp than right here at Hadley Rill?
Then a demonstration of a classic experiment.
Well, in my left hand, I have a feather. In my right hand, a hammer. And I'll drop the two of them here, and hopefully they'll hit the ground at the same time. How about that? Proves that Mr. Galileo was correct in his findings.
171 hours after leaving Earth, Scott and Irwin lifted off its sister planet, accompanied by a musical salute from their onboard tape recorder.
Good liftoff, automatic. view of the realm, huh?
Apollo 16 blasted off for the moon in April 1972. On board were astronauts John Young, Ken Mattingly, and Charles Duke.
Hello, Houston. Sweet 16 has arrived.
Young and Duke would land in the lunar highlands of Descartes to look for evidence of ancient volcanic activity on the moon.
Whoa! Come on, man! Well, Ryan is finally here, Houston. Fantastic. Hey, John, this is perfect with the LIM and the rover and you and Stone Mountain and the old flag. Come on out here and give me a salute. Big Navy salute. Off the ground, on the floor. There we go. Fit.
Young set up an ultraviolet camera to become the first astronomer on the moon. He took pictures of the Earth's upper atmosphere and magnetosphere and their interaction with the solar wind. He also photographed the interstellar gas that's present throughout space and the ultraviolet halos that appear around galaxies. Young placed a series of sensors in the soil. Then he fired explosive charges, mapping the subsurface, as geologists do on Earth to search for oil.
Fire.
Now, time to get some wheels and start exploring.
Scotty, this is so great you can't believe it. Look at him go, would you, Charlie? You got all your steering. It's great. Oh, this is going to be some kind of different ride. But it couldn't pick a better spot. John, you're just beautiful. That is the most beautiful sight. What's that? You're standing there on the rim of that crater.
Young used a portable instrument to measure the local magnetic field. He would later record the most intense magnetic field ever found on the moon, far higher than scientists ever suspected.
The rock in the near field on this rim that has some white on the top of it, we'd like you to pick it up as a grab sample. This one right here? That's it. This one right here? That's it. You got it right there.
There would be one more stop before they closed out their journey. With Duke taking the pictures and Young doing the driving, they put the rover through a full test.
Man, you are really bouncing. Is he on the ground at all? That's 10 kilometers. Huh? He's got about 2 wheels on the ground. Okay, turn sharp. I have no desire to turn sharp. Okay, here's a Sharpie. Hey, that's great. He's a big rooster tail out of all 4 wheels. And as he turns, he skids. The back end breaks loose just like on snow. Come on back, John. Hey, the deck is running. Man, I'll tell you, Indy's never seen a driver like this. Okay, when he hits the craters and starts bouncing, it's when he gets his rooster tail. He makes sharp turns.
April 22nd.
The lunar surface temperature in the sun should be around 135 degrees today.
Today, they headed 4 kilometers to the south to climb their rover up the side of Stone Mountain.
Man, we are really going up a hill, I'll tell you.
Their first stop, a crater 700 feet above their lunar module.
Wow, what a place. What a view, isn't it, John? It's absolutely unreal. We really come up here, Tony. It's just spectacular.
They would make a total of 6 stops today, collecting samples of large rocks, down through the intermediates to the smallest soil particles.
How far away is that crater?
Man, we come a long way. Hey, John, it's easier to go straight across. That was fun. I haven't had any trouble. Okay. I have a tough time walking up there. Tony, how about an extension, you guys? We feeling good. If Dad all we're going to do tonight was sit around and talk.
But with the limited oxygen and water in the backpacks, it was time to close out Expedition 2. Trip number 3. Today they would head north 5 kilometers to North Ray Crater, the largest lunar crater to be explored by men.
Okay, Tony, it seems to me this is a more subdued surface over here than going towards South Ray. Oh, spectacular. Just spectacular. Man, does this thing have steep walls. They said 60 degrees. Now, I tell you, I can't see to the bottom of it, and I'm as close to the edge as I'm going to get. That's the truth. They look like drill holes is what they look like. You do that in West Texas and you get a rattlesnake. Here you get permanently shattered soil.
How about rolling that one over?
No way.
Then one of the most spectacular discoveries of the mission.
Look at the size of that biggie. It is a biggie, isn't it? It may be further away than we think. No, it's not very far. It was just right beyond you.
And we better press on for the big boulder?
Okay, we're headed that way. You get the tongs, John? Yep, I'll carry the rake.
That big black dot.
Fantastic.
If we could see to the bottom, we could say for sure if this big black rock is right out of the bottom.
God, you mean they weren't at it? No. It looked like they were standing right there.
Look at the size of that rock.
I'm curious what they're going to look like when they stand next to it.
We can see. The closer I get to it, the bigger it is. Yeah, but look at the permanent shattered part, Charlie.
And as our crew slowly sinks, we bet upon disappeared into the sunset.
Well, Tony, that's your house rock right there.
But all too soon, it was time for their lunar adventure to come to an end.
Home again, jiggity jig. Boy, Houston, the beauty of this place is just absolutely incredible.
10 seconds.
What a ride, what a ride.
They had spent a record 3 days on the surface of the moon. In their 3 expeditions, they traveled more than 12 miles, bringing back a record 210 pounds of lunar material. Their most startling discovery, magnetic rocks, an indication that the moon once had a molten core. On the way back home, Ken Mattingly went outside to retrieve his photographic film. His measurements and pictures in lunar orbit revealed another startling surprise. The highlands that Young and Duke explored are rich in aluminum. It was quite a mission. In John Young's words,
I think we've seen as much in 10 days as most people see in 10 lifetimes.
Apollo Control Houston, an observer on the Ticonderoga estimates the distance from the ship about 1 mile.
in December 1972, men left for the moon for the last time. Budget cuts had canceled the last 3 missions. Apollo 17 would bring an end to man's greatest adventure. Jack Schmitt, a geologist, would become the first scientist to walk on the moon. Gene Cernan would make the last footsteps on the moon's surface. Ronald Evans would fly the command module. More than 500,000 people gathered to witness the final liftoff for the moon, the first to take place at night.
Houston, you are go for orbit. Go for orbit.
After checking out the spacecraft in Earth orbit, they burned out of orbit and headed towards the moon. They docked with their lunar module and then continued the 3-day coast to the moon. When they reached lunar orbit, Cernan and Schmidt entered the lunar module and undocked. With the command module in the distance, they passed over their landing site, a valley in the region known as Taurus Littrow. Here they hoped to find the youngest lunar material so far and direct evidence of ancient volcanoes.
Stand by for pitch over. Oh, are we coming in? There it is. Proceeded. And there it is, Houston. There's Camelot. Wide on target. I see it. Contact. Okay, Houston, the Challenger has landed.
Roger, Challenger. That's super.
That's beautiful. This has got to be one of the most proud moments of my life, I guarantee you.
We thank you very much.
Okay, Bob, I've got my tools of the trade right here.
While Schmidt set up experiments, Cernan was busy drilling a series of holes for core samples and experimental probes.
I'm going to get this thing out now that I got it.
Boys, you know, that's what you call getting down into your work.
Let's see if I can't crack the corner and get that contact. See if I can't get it.
Look at the boulders out there. Jesus.
I was strolling on the moon one day in the merry, merry month of December. No, May's the month. May, that's right. Oh, what a nice day. Oh, funny, there's not a cloud in the sky, except in the earth. That boulder's gonna roll. Man, that is hard. Just don't stub your toe. Watery, it's obviously very cohesive because it's the bottom of the core is not smooth. It's very jaggedy and fragmental-like. Holy smoly! Why are we on a slope? You okay?
Man, that's rough country in there, isn't it?
At Shorty Crater, one of the most exciting finds yet, it was the volcanic evidence they were looking for.
There is orange soil. Well, don't move it till I see it. It's all over. Orange.
That's the volcanic mix.
It's trench time. Jack, that is really orange. Light gray material on either side. Oh, man, that's incredible. Okay, Gene, we're going to have to... That's incredible.
Cernan and Schmidt returned to the rover, bringing to an end man's exploration of the moon. But before they left the surface, they held a brief ceremony.
When we return this rock, or some of the others like it to Houston, we'd like to share a piece of this rock with so many of the countries throughout the world. We hope that this will be a symbol of what our feelings are, what the feelings of the Apollo program are, and a symbol of mankind that we can live in peace and harmony in the future.
And a final word from the last man on the moon.
I'd like to just let what I believe history will record, that America's challenge of today has forged man's destiny of tomorrow. Seated 3, 2, 1, ignition. We're on our way, Houston. Bets are good. Ag thought. Take over.
Roger, you have good thrust.
And we're go.
Roger, Challenger, your trajectory is right on the money. Both systems are go.
Today, visitors at the Kennedy Space Center marvel at the mighty Saturn V, a fallen giant from the past. And the moon is still once more. The machines of man left behind to stand their silent watch. What is the legacy of Apollo? We did not unlock any major secrets of the solar system, but we did learn that lava flows and meteor bombardments both helped shape the early moon. We found aluminum, magnesium, and other metals. Would this lead to the mining operation of the future? If frozen water can be found on the moon, a self-sufficient lunar base might be practical. But more importantly, the Apollo flights have changed the way we look at ourselves and our place in the universe.
I'm firmly convinced that it's changed the whole basis of philosophy, including religion. I don't think that we've begun to see what the era of spaceflight really is. We've got a long way to go, and I hope I'm living when we leave this solar system on a venture to find another planet Earth.
Some philosophical thoughts occur when a person stands on the surface of the moon and looks back at the Earth 250,000 miles away. And what a beautiful planet it is, what a fragile planet it is, limited resources, all these things sort of automatically flash through your mind.
We went to the moon as trained observers in order to gather data, not only with our instruments on board, but with our minds. And I'd like to quote a statement from Plutarch, which I think expresses our feelings since we've come back. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be lighted. Thank you.
Oh, this is really profound. I'll tell you, this is absolutely mind-boggling up here.
Gentlemen, I can well imagine that a foreign planet must be a weird thing to see. We'd like you to leave immediately.
Okay. My golly, this time goes fast.
Okay, and we're on our tracks.
Roger. And follow them home.
There's sure a lot of neat rocks in Dune. Too bad we can't spend some more time.
On your next trip.
Yeah, next trip, you're right.
As the space poet Reisling would say, we're ready for you to come back again to the homes of men on the cool green hills of Earth.
Thank you, Joe. We're ready too. But it's been great.
For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one.